President Biden dealing with fallout from Fallgate after face planting hard during the Air Force graduation. The big guy trying to laugh off his embarrassing tumble, while his White House says there's no need to worry.
He tripped over a sandbag on the stage, and briefly he tripped and got up, and he got right back up and continued what he was there to do. He did not. There was no need for the doctor to see him as it was related to the fall, and he's doing fine.
Biden's pals in the liberal media are covering for him by accusing Republicans of pouncing.
Biden has this misunderestimated thing, right, where people assume, oh, he's too old, he doesn't know what he's doing, and then he just keeps delivering. Today he tripped over I guess there was like a sandbag on, and Twitter and the right are going crazy. It's the advance team or whoever's fault that they put a sandbag in front of him. I tripped in my own house. Is he so enraging to the right because he is so normal?
I'm more than 2 years older than the president, and I do just fine. I don't want to have a fall. But if I do, I hope I get up as good as he did.
But given voters' concerns about the president's age, this is an image that his critics are already capitalizing on and pouncing on.
And while the majority of Americans are concerned about a second Biden term, Jen Psaki sees the bright side to the president's problems, but she had to smear Republicans as racist to do it.
Well, if you look back, Joy, to 2020, they were trying to figure out how to take him out. They can't make him extreme. They can't really make him offensive. I mean, one, he's a white man who's older, so he is comfortable to many in their base. The many in their base. But I think also they have underestimated him at many times.
Well, Bernie Sanders is old and white, and I feel very comfortable demonizing him, Sandra.
Because of his socialist policies, I hope, Jesse. This Biden fall, I think, brings into question age in a greater way for both parties. And I think that's an important point to make as we enter the 2024 election. I actually found a local news article to where the president was that day asking, is this fall a downfall for older politicians from both parties? So take into account former President Donald Trump, 77 years old. He'll be 77 in June, right? 76 today, 77 in a few days, 78 come election day. Joe Biden, 80. He'll be 82 come election day, 86 if he finishes a second term in office. I think people don't want to see their parents fall. They don't want to see their grandparents fall. They certainly don't want to see the President of the United States, their President of the United States, fall. The White House today could have answered the question. He went to the doctor. Why didn't he go to the doctor? Why wasn't he checked out? She was asked the question out of the gate at the White House today. They're brushing it off as expected, but there's going to be a bigger and bigger question for both parties with age. If people don't like seeing this happen, and they're going to continue to elect older white leaders, to Jen Psaki's point, they're going to wonder and they're going to be concerned about somebody getting hurt. If he's hurt and taken out of the game, we all know what plan B is.
Greg, would you like to pounce on Biden for falling,
I'm so ready to pounce. But get this, I'm not going to pounce on his physical problems, right? Because that's what they want, right? This helps the Democrats to focus on the body and not the brain. He's actually in good physical shape. He's not fat, but his brain's in big trouble. I would prefer a brain floating in a vat of nutrients at this point if it believed in science, small government and the right to personal safety. So the horrifying part about Joe Biden, it has nothing to do with falling, but failing. He's failing America in a radical departure from basically all of our American values. And that's either he's not interested in crime, he's not interested in education, he's not interested in protecting kids from activists. And probably the biggest assault that he's done on America is on the melting pot. I mean, that's a prime American value, and he's turned the dial up on the melting pot by embracing oppression politics, right? He's now put a target on whites, saying that there's this huge villain, right? Extreme white MAGA, extremist white supremacists, but they really can't find them. But who knew that the face of like an anti-American revolution would be Joe Biden's face? And it's because he's not there. He's just a husk. He's being used. He abdicated his own soul for the job. So I guess what I'm saying is, yeah, he's a frail old man, and I'll make fun of him to the day he leaves about falling. if that gets him out. If that gets him out, great.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. But that's not the problem. That is not, the falling is not the problem. This is a dark and dreary path that we've selected in this man. That's the problem.
He has a mental problem and a physical problem, and all the voters have said that. 2/3.
By the way, I fell yesterday, so that makes me an expert.
I actually pushed you.
It
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
the
true.
sandbag's fault. No, there's no question. The Washington Post ABC poll last month made that clear, that 2/3 of voters, including many Democrats, say that Joe Biden lacks the mental sharpness and the physical agility to be president. And to many voters, agility is ability. I agree with Greg. I've been saying this for a very long time. Let's not fall into the trap. The art of politics is to tell people not what they can see, but what they can't see. When I think of Joe Biden, I don't think the guy falling, although it's odd. I don't think of the guy shaking hands with the air, as weird as that is. I think of the guy who, with no rationale, no plan, ignored the advice of all of his generals and pulled that out of Afghanistan like that, leaving $7.2 billion worth of our intelligence and equipment for the Taliban to have. And what is the point in this country of having the first female vice president of color, if the women in Afghan are less free, have fewer rights because her and her boss are so reckless with foreign policy? Another point about Joe Biden, that is going to matter to voters. And I'm not here to do the whataboutism that it's Republicans too. When Joe Biden falls, I think of Joe Biden falling as does the rest of the country. But the fear of Donald Trump being president again and the fear of Kamala Harris being president soon makes many otherwise reasonable, rational Democrats say and do crazy things. They defend what we can all see, which is a president who's not up to the job. The founders in developing the United States Constitution said the president and the vice president must be 35 years of age and U.S. citizens. They assumed that those two people would be able to talk and walk properly.
When the president falls, the first thing I think of is Kamala Harris.
Yes,
And
ouch.
are Democrats, does that cross their mind every time you see him stumble like that?
Well, every time something like that happened one time, and there was a visible sandbag that the man tripped over. So whether that's the advance team's fault, and he was up there for 2 hours prior to that, so maybe they didn't think that he would be shifting back that way. Whoever you want to blame, people trip, and they can't. Greg tripping yesterday
Do you
can
think
no
somebody
longer be president.
planted that there?
No, of course not.
And it was
I
the
just
bike's
don't.
fault in Wilmington.
Okay, if you want to, let's take a trip through history of presidents falling. Let's start with Ronald Reagan, who's like the second coming of Jesus. to
Republican.
Let's get his policy.
He fell in love
Republicans.
with Nancy.
He fell on the steps of Air Force
Gerald
One.
Ford before him.
Yes. And I mentioned it yesterday, we had a president in a wheelchair who everybody liked a lot, who revolutionized the country.
You're not making your point.
Yes,
No, you're not. Because he's the Fed, FDR was a Democrat. The only examples you're using that we remember are Republicans. You see my point?
Right, and you didn't pay any attention to it. You did not care about
This is
Ronald
different.
It was
Reagan.
an SNL classic
We
skit.
weren't even on television in the 80s.
Oh, that's the
Kevin
problem
Chase.
here.
Jessica, can I play some
No,
sound
you-
from Donald Trump and you can react to what he said about this?
I guess so, but I have other things to say
Okay.
too, so I'm going to add it.
Okay, let's listen.
You can't fall. You just can't fall, no matter what. Just can't allow it to happen. And I better not allow, especially after saying this, I better not allow it to happen with me.
Is the FBI politicized? Is the DOJ weaponized?
They're being protected, and it's a one-sided system. It is a dual system of government. There's a dual system of... you talk about law and order. You can't have law and order in a country where you have such corruption.
And Jessica, you mentioned you wanted to say something.
I did. So I'll respond to that first, but actually the clip that I wish that you had played is how he started, which was telling Sean that he wanted him to stop going after the president about his faculties and falling. And I thought that that was really smart as an old... Why are you grinning like that?
Because I can't wait to respond.
But you're not going to have time because I'm going to go so long. Okay,
Ladies.
so then...
You think he took the high road, but
No,
it was a low road pretending to be a high road. He thought that the Biden was so pathetic, you shouldn't make fun of him. That's savage,
He's
as Kat would
also...
say.
He might have had a moment of recognition of the fact that his biggest challenger is 44 years old. Whatever you think of DeSantis, he's got a lot more runway coming than Donald Trump does. And that he needs to acknowledge the fact that if he is running against Biden, he needs to look fitter than him. He needs to look, more
He does.
intact.
We just saw it.
Okay.
Donald Trump looks
I've
much
seen...
fitter.
All right, anyway.
And
So
really sharp.
to Greg's point about the president, it's not about the falling, it's the failing. We had an incredible jobs report today. Sandra, you were talking about it earlier.
Don't speak for me on that. There's a real problem with real wages in this country. If people want to ignore that, that's your choice.
All right, so they had to revise the number up by a couple 100,000 jobs. The unemployment rate continues to be incredible. We have the lowest unemployment rate for Black Americans and for Latino people. Got down to 4% that's happened.
Got back down. Do you remember what it was?
It's lower than
Trump levels?
No, it's lower than it was at Trump levels.
The polls don't reflect it. He's down on every
I don't
issue.
care what the polls say. I'm talking about reality.
I bet.
And if reality catches up with what's going on with the economy, then Biden will not be judged in the same way as 90% on the wrong track or whatever it is.
So people have to be told how great things are then.
Yeah.
No,
rather
Sandra.
than actually live it.
83%
of the country says that they feel that they're in
constantly with
economic
negativity about what this president is doing. And yes, Afghanistan was a mistake, but I know a lot of people who look at Joe Biden and they think about the guy who's standing shoulder to shoulder with Zelensky in the fight of Ukraine's life to stand up to Russia.
Why do two-thirds of Democrats not want him to have a second term?
What, like RFK?
No, two-thirds of Democratic voters don't want him to have a second term.
It's 83% are going to support him. That's lower than the 90% that said that they would have supported Obama in the second term. But that number, it's not right.
Happy Friday, Jessica.
Aw.
You're doing well.
You are.
Yeah.
You're doing better than most people
You guys
thought
treat
you'd
me
do.
like I'm a baby. Like, oh, she's doing
That's
well.
exactly what
Smart.
Trump did with Biden. Oh, you know what? Just you got to be nicer to him.
Greg was right. Trump took the high road for the first time ever.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.